Warning, the following video contains spoilers about the content of Pikmin 2. Continue watching at your own risk. Hello, I'm Scruffy, and I'm back for another dissection of the GameCube classic Pikmin 2. You can always count on Pikmin 2 to connect you with its memorable sound effects. Who else feels happy to hear a sound like, sad to hear a sound like, and alert upon hearing? Well, today I'll be telling you some interesting inside trivia about the sound effects in Pikmin 2. By exploring the raw dump of sound effects inside the game's files. You can find this in the folder Audio Res, and then in Banks. This folder contains 49.aw files that contain the raw sounds of the game. wscene_0.aw is by far the largest, and the only one I'm detailing in this video since the other 48 contain mainly musical instrument sounds. So, extract this .aw file and you'll have a big collection of Pikmin 2 sound effects to play with. Here's where things get interesting, so hang on to your headphones and listen close. In the first two Pikmin games, if you leave Pikmin buried in the ground too long, the sprouts will wilt from a flower stage back to a leaf stage, making this sound. It also occurs when Pikmin instantly lose their flowers due to withering blowhog blasts. The interesting thing is, this sound was merely modified with pitch modulation to create the sound of candy pop buds wilting to the ground. I'll play the two together. Pikmin losing flowers, candy pop bud wilting. If I raise this sound up to the starting pitch, C, of the second sound, the connection is even clearer. Just goes to show the Pikmin and candy pop buds have a very interwoven relationship. And speaking of Pikmin, wanna talk like a Pikmin? It's not very difficult. Just get any simple recording program, Audacity is more than an option, and say something slowly around the pitch range of C, specifically C4, then speed it up 100%. It kind of requires a voice with a high timbre, so a bass like me probably can only get so close to the characteristic sound. I'll do my best to demonstrate though. Boom, 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 boom. This is how most of the Pikmin sounds were recorded. I can take the Pikmin sounds you find in this sound dump and slow them down 100% to hear the original recordings.
Meow. Yeah.
It leads me to wonder who voiced the Pikmin. My biggest hunch is Kazumi Totaka, the sound designer for Pikmin 2 and the voice of Yoshi. But enough about the usual Pikmin sound effects. This is about what I assume to be unused takes. They are at a much lower sample rate than the final takes, and not sped up. I suppose they were early takes. If you do speed them up, they don't really sound like the Pikmin we know. You know, these sounds form a great segue into sample rate in Nintendo games. Just for reference, sample rate is the number of times per second a continuous signal like a sound wave is converted into discrete time signals for a computer to play back, expressed in kilohertz. The higher the sample rate, the clearer the sound seems to be. Most music released today is 44th kilohertz. Nintendo's stockpile of stock sound effects appeared to mostly be at 32 kilohertz. Their recorded or generated sounds would normally be sampled at 22,050 or 15,616 Hz, with some oddballs. And then there are sounds sampled at 5,666 Hz. Not very much. The unused Pikmin takes were at this rate, along with several other sounds that all have one thing in common. They are meant to change speed in-game. Makes sense for the unused Pikmin voices, they're supposed to be sped up. What doesn't make sense is that the recordings for the Bulbman voices, some of the Water Wraith voices, and the Awakening Woods ambient bird song are also at 5,666. And they're all 100% slower than in the game. That means the game is speeding up these sounds in real time. But why? It's not like their speed slides over time. I mean, perhaps the sound design team was hesitant about what speed these creatures have vocalized, so they implanted a function for the game to change it. But it seems likely that the Water Wraith sound in-game was how the sound was originally produced. So why slow it down? And why are only some of the Water Wraith sounds slow? That's not my call. But here's a call I can talk about. The antenna beetle's call. There are quite a few sounds that go into this complex sound, and they all get chewed by some algorithm to alter their speed in the characteristic pattern we hear. One of these sounds is a real recording of crickets and cicadas. Take a listen. Another substantially darker sound mixed in the clicks, calls, and songs of PNF fauna is a slowed-down woman's scream in the Empress Bullblax's death throes. This sound normally gets a touch muddled by the boss defeated music, but on its own, it rings quite clear. I'm unsure of the original speed of the scream, but no matter what, this sound is just plain creepy. Speaking of creepy death noises, the armored cannon beetle larva and the decorated cannon beetle have much longer cries of quietus than what you would hear normally. Truth be told, I didn't find this in the actual sound dump, as the dump didn't extract all of the game's sounds. It either failed, or there are others in the other .aw files. I found this circumstantially by playing the normal game, of all crazy notions. Yes, if you defeat the armored cannon beetle or decorated cannon beetle and then pause the game immediately after, you hear the full extent of their embarrassment in the face of defeat. And then unpause, and it still has two other noises to make. Why is this sound so long? How did the developers create such a sound? And if they did truncate it in-game, why didn't they just trim the sound before placing it in the program? All these questions and more will probably remain unanswered forever. But here's a question you might have for Nintendo that I can answer right now. Haven't I heard this sound before? Not the gurgling cannon beetle sound. I don't think Nintendo is ever making that sound again. I'm talking about a number of sounds that seem to seep their way into separate Nintendo IPs. The answer is yes. Yes, you have. Nintendo loves putting little Easter egg references to their other games in their games, and the sound department is not exempt from this. But it's not just for kicks that Nintendo has a shared sound library, it's also conceivably more efficient. If you were busily putting together a sound bank and needed a new explosion sound, would you use the licensed foley you already have conveniently available from another game? Or go through the trouble of recording a controlled explosion or designing the sound from scratch? And now, thanks to the generous archives of the Sounds Resource, a site for extracting video game sound banks, I've discovered various sound effects that make a fascinating trek through some of Nintendo's popular IPs and media. Here are just a few examples of some stock and original sounds shared by these games. This slide whistle sound was in Donkey Kong Jungle Beat and Super Mario Galaxy. These cartoon violin foleys were in Luigi's Mansion and DKJB. This laugh is, of course, from Duck Hunt, but was also present when
something was horribly wrong
to the SS Drake in the opening of Pikmin 3. This absorbent sound was in Super Mario 3D World and in Occupational Hazards, the Pikmin short movie. These squeaky bolt foleys have made their way from DKJB to Pikmin 3. This funk band cue was also in Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and presumably unused in Super Mario 3D World. And just listen to what I also discovered in the files of Super Mario 3D World. The Emperor Bullblax lashing its tongue. I can't find this in the actual game, I'm assuming it went unused. But it makes me wonder if they were planning to make a Mario Cannon-friendly crossover enemy or something. Anyway, the one I really wanted to talk about is a sound in Pikmin 2 that also came with a game just 2 years earlier, Super Mario Sunshine. It's this sound. For those of you who have been to Pina Park a couple times, you may recognize this as the sound of those lazy-eyed bullet bills being fired from Monty Mole's cannon. Well, it's also the sound of Gatling Groink mortars flying through the air. Yep, both these projectiles use the same sound. But Scruffy, you might interject, the Gatling Groink doesn't go... It goes... Don't worry, I'll show you just how it works. The Gatling Groink's mortars are programmed to play this whistling sound with a series of timed modifiers placed on it. That is, there's a volume modifier that gradually raises the sound's volume to full as the mortar flies, a frequency oscillator modifier to make the pitch of the sound constantly wobble, and a pitch bend modifier that gradually brings the overall speed of the sound down. But the sound and the modifiers don't just play every time the Groink fires. They're specifically tied to the mortar objects. So if you pause the game while the mortars are flying, the sound and the modifiers pause as well. And when you resume, they reset. But if you still don't believe me, and honestly, I was pretty skeptical at first, I'm willing to build the Gatling Groink's whistle using only the raw whistle sound and the modifiers I've described. First, for comparison, I wanted to get Gatling Groink mortars to fly for as long as possible to record as much of its whistle sound as I could. Well, the Gatling Groink is a stubborn beast, ladies and gentlemen. First, I set up a custom stage in challenge mode with just me and the Groink, and I set a particular parameter of the Groinks, namely FP14, from 250 to 2500. For the Gatling Groink's programming, this parameter is the radius in which it will actively attack Pikmin. So, this Groink can fire from 10 times farther away. I figured since it has to calculate a parabola for its shots to arc to reach the nearest Pikmin or leader, having a radius 10 times farther away would just make it shoot mortars with a higher initial velocity. I was dead wrong. It didn't correct for this distance by velocity, but instead by angle. This didn't bode well for my Pikmin. Then I tried lowering global gravity all the way to 0, which renders the game in an unpredictable void of weight and friction. Not for the Gatling Groink, though. Yep, this diabolical monstrosity's mortars seem capable of their own local gravity that doesn't reference global gravity. I mean, what is this thing? Really? Eventually, I got an extended sound by finding a suitable specimen in the unedited game, in the Subterranean Complex, Sublevel 7. You see, Gatling Groinks atop pedestals that don't walk anywhere are separate enemy entities from Gatling Groinks proper. Their only difference in their files is that the pedestal Groinks, as I call them, gain no velocity through their walking animation. Add the increased height of the pedestal and the deep abyss below them, and you have as good an opportunity for extended mortar watching as the 4th of July. If I positioned a leader close enough to the edge, the random deviation of the mortars would eventually cause one of them to fall into the abyss. And there's the extended sound. You can hear that the decreasing pitch eventually comes to a stop, but the frequency oscillation does not stop. I believe if we heard this mortar for longer, that ending part would just keep looping ad infinitum. But that's okay. I have the extended sound I need for a comparison. So, I took the raw whistle sound, this one, and put it in an audio editing device. Because I didn't know exactly where the sound starts looping in the Gatling Groink sound function, I just doubled the length of the whistle sound without changing the pitch, so that I can just about match the length of the in-game sound. Then, I added a low-frequency oscillation effect to it, which is the pitch wobbliness you hear, automated volume to turn gradually up as the sound plays, and automated pitch bending to bend way down, almost an octave down, for a longer period of time than the volume modifier. Finally, I combined it with other sounds the Groink itself makes when firing. And so, here's the in-game Gatling Groink's whistle. And here it is reproduced by me using the same bass sound and the same techniques. Pretty similar, right? Sure, it's not perfect because I don't know the exact values in Pikmin 2's sound functions, but I think it's safe to go ahead and stamp a quote-era demonstrandum here because Sunshine's Bullet Bills and Pikmin 2's Gatling Groinks definitely both use this sound. So, that's my trivia to offer on the sound effects in Pikmin 2. All these sounds are just so memorable, and I couldn't resist sharing these interesting facts once I discovered how to extract sounds from Pikmin 2. Speaking of which, I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Espyo, who detailed how to extract Pikmin 2 sounds on the Cutting Room Floor, a site all about digging into the unused content in video games. If you'd like to check out video game sounds on a whim, or if you need some stock sound effects for a video like this one, head to the Sounds resource, or the video game resource site in general. It's a really helpful place. The links are in this video's description. And finally, if you have any questions for me, or if you think of another sound effect shared between Nintendo games, I'd love to hear in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. This is Scruffy, signing off with a bang.